You'll be shocked to learn the truth about Jesus' face and skin color. Was Jesus really how we imagine him today? A rare letter written by Pontius Pilate to Roman Emperor Tiberius gives surprising details about Jesus, things not even mentioned in the Bible. In this letter, Pilate talks about Jesus' appearance, miracles, trial, crucifixion, and even his resurrection. Here's a summary of what the letter says. Pilate begins by saying the events in Judea are so incredible, they could affect the whole Roman Empire. He says since he took over as governor, his life has been filled with stress and conflict. At a banquet he arranged, Jewish leaders refused to attend, claiming their religion forbade eating with Romans, though Pilate saw through their excuse. He says the priests hated Rome and were willing to betray anyone for power. Jerusalem, he says, is the hardest city to rule. The people are rebellious, and he fears an uprising. With limited soldiers and no reinforcements from Syria, he warns that Rome's desire to conquer more land may end up weakening the empire. Then Pilate talks about a man named Jesus of Nazareth, who taught a new message about a God who sent him. At first, Pilate thought Jesus might stir up rebellion, but he quickly saw that Jesus was actually more friendly to Romans than to the Jewish leaders. One day, Pilate saw Jesus calmly speaking to a crowd. He stood out, peaceful, wise, and different. Pilate's secretary blended in with the people to hear what Jesus was saying. He was amazed at Jesus' wisdom, saying it was greater than any Roman philosopher. When someone asked Jesus if Jews should pay taxes to Caesar, Jesus said, "Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God." Pilate respected that answer and chose not to arrest him. He even offered Jesus quiet protection, allowing him to teach freely. But this made the Jewish leaders furious, especially the wealthy ones. Jesus called them out publicly, saying, "You are like snakes, beautiful on the outside, but full of lies inside." Pilate ends the letter by saying if the Roman gods are ever replaced by the religion of Jesus, it might be because of the freedom he allowed Jesus, and that fate may have already begun working through him. After speaking of sacrifice, he disappeared like fading light. I felt relieved. His presence was too heavy for me. Herod, the old ruler at the time, joined Jesus' enemies. If it were up to him, Jesus would have been killed instantly. But Herod, concerned about how the Senate might react, hesitated. Maybe like me, he feared Jesus, though a Roman official could never admit fearing a Jew. Herod came to visit me at the Praetorium. As he left, he asked what I thought of Jesus. I said Jesus seemed like a wise man, not a political threat, so Rome allowed him to speak freely. Herod smirked and left mockingly. Passover was approaching, and tensions were rising. Crowds flooded Jerusalem, many shouting for Jesus' death. I learned that the temple leaders used money to bribe people to stir up unrest. A Roman centurion had also been publicly insulted. I asked Syria's governor for soldiers, 100 footmen and 100 cavalry, but he refused. I was left alone with only a few men in a city on the edge of revolt. Jesus was arrested as a supposed rebel, though they knew he wasn't. The crowd, pushed by the leaders, kept shouting, "Crucify him." 3 groups turned against Jesus: the Herodians, Sadducees, and Pharisees. The Herodians and Sadducees hated Jesus and disliked Roman rule. They never forgave me for marching into Jerusalem with Roman banners, which they saw as a holy insult. Tensions rose further when I suggested using part of the temple treasury for public works. The Pharisees were already angry at Jesus for criticizing them across the region, and now they were furious with me too. The people were restless, ready to riot at any moment. Jesus was brought to the high priest and sentenced to death. Caiaphas, the high priest, sent him to me to approve the sentence. I refused and said Herod should judge him, as Jesus was from Galilee. Herod pretended to show respect for Rome and sent Jesus back, putting the responsibility on me. My palace was surrounded. More rebels arrived daily. It felt like all of Judea had flooded into the city. It was chaos, and I was alone to face it. After a terrifying earthquake, a respected Jewish scholar named Bazar, a friend of Jesus from Antioch, was found dead. No one knows if it was from fear or grief. That evening, I walked into the city toward Golgotha. The crucifixion had already taken place. People were leaving, shocked and somber. Even the Roman soldiers were deeply shaken. Our standard-bearer had covered the eagle in mourning cloth. Some Jewish soldiers whispered about miracles. Others stared at Mount Calvary, as if expecting a sign. I returned to the praetorium, my heart heavy. Blood still stained the stairs. An old man knelt in prayer, crying. He fell at my feet, sobbing. It moved me deeply. We cried together. Many others around us were also overwhelmed with sorrow. I asked the man who he was. He replied, "I am Joseph of Arimathea. I request permission to bury Jesus of Nazareth." I granted it and sent guards with him to protect the body. A few days later, the tomb was found empty. People began claiming Jesus had risen, just as he had said. I couldn't confirm it, but I looked into it. Joseph used his own tomb for the burial. The next day, a priest asked me to secure the tomb so the disciples wouldn't steal the body and claim a resurrection. I ordered Captain Marcus to post guards. Later, when I heard the tomb was empty, I questioned Marcus. He had placed his lieutenant, Ben Isham, and 100 men to guard the site. Isham told me a glowing light appeared early that morning. At first, he thought it was women coming to anoint the body, but the light grew brighter, and he saw what looked like joyful spirits in burial clothes, surrounded by heavenly music. Then the earth shook again, and he fainted. When he awoke, he was lying face down. He knew it was too early for sunrise. He hadn't slept, as sleeping on duty was punishable by death. Some other soldiers had rested, but he stayed alert. He said the light and singing lasted almost an hour until daylight came. He admitted he didn't approach the tomb out of fear. When reinforcements arrived, they left. The priests later tried to bribe him to lie, saying the disciples stole the body while the guards slept. He refused, saying he never saw any disciples and only learned the body was gone later. He also said some priests believed Jesus wasn't just a man. They thought he may have existed before, appearing during the times of Abraham and Lot. Even enemies of Jesus admitted he did things no ordinary man could, turning water to wine, healing the sick, raising the dead, calming storms and more. That's why so many feared and hated him. He wasn't accused of crimes, just of being different. Some say that even Jesus' opponents believed in him. At the cross, one man said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Pontius Pilate described Jesus as unlike anyone else, calm, kind, and peaceful. He had an average height and a quiet strength that drew people in. His eyes stood out the most, deep, wise, and full of compassion. Some said they looked light brown or even blue, depending on the light. Peaceful. He had an average height and a quiet strength that drew people in. His eyes stood out the most, deep, wise, and full of compassion. Some said they looked light brown or even blue, depending on the light. Jesus had long, soft, slightly wavy hair, light brown, almost blonde, which was rare for the region. His skin was fair and smooth, showing he spent time outside but still looked well kept. His face was balanced and beautiful, showing strength without being harsh. He had a full, neat beard that made him look mature and respectful. He wore simple, clean clothes, usually a tunic and long robe. He had no jewelry or ornaments, showing he didn't care for wealth. His look spoke of humility and peace, even without words. This is the most accurate description I can give of him. I share it with full honesty, hoping to clear my name and show loyalty to my sovereign. If you liked this video, hit subscribe and check out the next one for more mysteries like this.